everybody. My name is Shyla. Welcome to our Mentor Me panel about majors and careers.
So my name is Aditi. I graduated from TISB in 2018. I currently go to CMU, Carnegie Mellon, and I'm studying electrical and computer engineering, and I'm going to be a junior.
Hey guys, I'm Rishi. I'm just smiling a lot because I'm very happy to be here. I'm a rising junior at Columbia, same year as Aditi. Graduated TISB in 2018. Yeah, right. I'm in Bangalore right now. I think Aditi is still on campus.
I'm still in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So actually, this is for me. I've already switched majors once in college. When I was doing my college applications, at that point I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I really felt that like choosing something would help me make a stronger application, and I think that was kind of true. I felt like I needed to settle on something, and so I chose material science because at the time I was taking bio, chemistry, and physics, and they were all things that I really liked. I really liked the sciences. I thought I wanted to do something in STEM. And so I was like, okay, this seems like it kind of takes all of my favorite subjects and combines it into like one holistic thing. Then I went to college. I did my first semester, did my introductory material science class, and I just didn't like it. It was just like, it didn't interest me. I didn't feel very challenged. And I just couldn't see myself doing that for a long period of time. I just felt like I thought I would get really bored by it. This is true for a lot of universities, but in your first year, you have some requirements usually to like kind of give you some scope to explore. And so in the College of Engineering, you are required to take 2 introductory engineering courses. And so I ended up taking also electrical and computer engineering the next semester. And I have to say, even after taking that, I really wasn't sure if I wanted to do electrical and computer engineering, but I most definitely did not want to do material science. And so I switched into electrical and computer engineering and felt very unsure, even starting off my sophomore year. Fall of sophomore year got over and I still was unsure. And it was actually only until the end of this semester that I really understood that this is what I wanted to do, because I took 2 classes that were in ECE and really enjoyed them, really enjoyed them. And, you know, I did the work and it didn't feel like, you know, it didn't feel like work. It just felt like just an activity that I liked doing. So, I mean, I think if I was to say anything about choosing your major, I would say just don't put some thought into it, but don't fret about it. It'll come with time, and especially going to school in the US, you have that flexibility to change.
So I came to Columbia as a film major. So the film major at Columbia is very theoretical, and I felt like I liked that, but I felt like I wouldn't be making the most out of my Columbia experience if I just watched and analyzed films, right? So then I switched to econ, actually. And funnily enough, the same thing happened there. Again, I liked it, right? It was enjoyable work, like the professors, like the students, liked the potential to make high earnings in the future. It just didn't click. It was just a fit thing, I guess, like a personality fit. So then I finally settled on philosophy, took a philosophy course, and I really gravitated towards that in the classroom. It really spoke to me. I completely agree with what Aditi said earlier. I don't mean to be cheesy, but it's like Harry Potter and the wand, like it chooses you in a way. And in fact, so because Columbia is, at least the undergraduate school, is a liberal arts model, I'm planning to do the philosophy major and still continue taking classes in film and in econ and in CS, kind of trying to take an entrepreneurial approach to designing my program of study. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather do that than do like a 2 majors and a minor or like double major, because I'm never going to get these 4 years back again. So I felt like, okay, I'm going to explore everything I can, because also that's just who I've been always as a person.
I would say, I mean, I really enjoy my major because I think like, especially right now, there's like a lot of like, scope in the sense that like, there are so many industries that I can go into because of my major. Well, Rishi even more than me, actually, with philosophy, you can pretty much go wherever. I don't know. I guess that's a pro. Because I mean there are a lot of, especially at CMU, because our electrical and computer engineering program is so big. There's a lot there. Like I have options for concentrations. Like I have 4 options for concentrations, and I don't really know what I want to do yet because they're all so different. Having a little bit more choice is nice. I would say one of the biggest cons is I definitely have a heavier workload compared to a lot of my peers. And what that means is sometimes I feel like I'm not getting the full college experience. 'Cause, sometimes I have to forfeit my weekends to complete some work. A lot of our assignments are project based, meaning that they're 2 or 3 weeks long, and it's, homework takes 24 hours, 30 hours to complete. And so, yeah, I mean, that would definitely be a con. So, I mean, this kind of ties back into the fact that the idea that you have to like really enjoy what you're doing, because otherwise you're not gonna be enjoying college, because you have to like what you're doing because you're gonna be doing it all the time.
Philosophy. So philosophy has two aspects of it. There's the tools of philosophy, and then there's the content, right? From a CS perspective, it's like the tools are like code, right? Like Java, Python, etc., etc., and the content is like softwares and video games and like Google Maps, stuff like that, if that makes sense. So a lot of times when we talk, like when we're talking every day, we're like, oh dude, that was such a philosophical thought, or that was such a, like that was pretty deep, or that's what we think of when we think of philosophy. Like what is morality, what does it mean to be human, what is the meaning of life, like what is consciousness, etc., so etc. That's what I would say is the content of philosophy. Like those are the philosophical topics, right, which we explore. But I think an essential aspect to point out is the tools. I think those one never really gets to explore unless you're doing like studying philosophy on a technical level. So the tools are logic, right? And you use logic in a variety of fields, in mathematics, in computer science, in engineering. But in philosophy, we use something called sentential calculus, which is just a fancy way of using logical operators with sentences, right? Instead of using like numbers or like variables, we use sentences to create logical statements. So like, for example, if we're like, if you wear glasses, then you have bad eyesight, right? So that's like a logical statement. So if then you could say, oh, if you don't wear glasses, then you have, can you say, do you like you have bad eyesight then, right? So that's, I don't know if I did a good job of that, but if you extrapolate that to complex arguments, that's what philosophy is. And the pros, I guess I would say, is I just love reading philosophy. Um, it's really difficult. Philosophy is way harder for me than econ is and then film is. But I think every time I'm presented with a challenge in philosophy, I want to I like rising to the challenge. I like spending more time on it, which is why I find it a good fit for me. And also, I really vibe with the kind of people in the philosophy department, the students as well as the instructors. That's a pro. Con, I would say, and this I guess you guys can anticipate, is like the constant uncertainty slash fear slash questions about, oh, the practicality of a philosophy major. Like, oh, what are you going to do as a philosophy major after graduating, right? What will prepare me for a good career after philosophy is not the content, right? Not the study of consciousness and ethics and morality, unless you want to become a philosopher. But what will help you in any field you go into is the tools: logical reasoning, understanding how to construct an argument, evaluating other people's argument and seeing where they're coming from. Those are traits of any sort of leader, right? Uh, any sort of job where you have to use intellectual work, which is, I would say, every job, right? Philosophy is a great preparation for that. It doesn't, I will concede that it doesn't prepare you as well, like for a high earning job out of college, as econ or finance or business or CS, because those are more technical skills. Like that's completely fair. But what I guess, to finish what my train of thought, the con I would say is, like I'm still uncertain about, okay, I'm getting a philosophy degree, which I'm playing the long game. So I'm still uncertain about, okay, like what could I do right after graduating?
I don't regret going into a lot of things applying as a material science engineering major, but if you're unsure, go undecided. I don't think that colleges care as much as like as much as we all think. And also, I would say maybe look for schools that, if you're unsure of what you want to do, maybe look for schools that kind of excel in the few fields that you want to go into. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be very honest. A lot of the top schools, like the difference between the numbered one school and the top 5 schools, they're all the same. Like, you're going to get the same level of education. It's just a number. They're all exactly the same. So if one gives you a little bit more leeway in terms of, it's like a good school for both, let's say in your case, engineering and economics, then that would be maybe something to take into consideration. I think I wish I knew the statistics, but I think it's something like 60% of people go into college with one major and then switch. Just like it's very, very common. So that's not something that you should really worry about, especially if you're going to college in the US.
And I would add on to that also by saying that if you want to do biology, and if you're just looking at the top 5 schools in general, they all might be really bad for biology. You don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so, and I would when it comes to rankings especially, it's a good base mark. It's something to look at, but it should not be your deciding factor. And what you should look at, if you do have an idea of where you want to go, is what schools are good at what you want to do.
Look, and I can only speak for the US, right? I'm not, people who are applying to the UK, Singapore, anywhere outside the US, I cannot speak for that. So just want to give that as a preface. The American college system is fueled by capitalism, right? It's all about brand, right? Ivy League is a brand. Stanford is a brand. MIT is a brand, right? Yeah, the top 20 colleges, like, think about who creates these kinds of lists, right? And think about what kinds of colleges are on these lists, right? It's like, what's the difference between like Columbia and like Berkeley and Carnegie Mellon? Like, if you look at a list, it'll be like, yeah, Columbia is number 1, like on the top, and then there's Berkeley, and then there's CMU. But it's like, dude, like, that's so arbitrary. I don't want to get into the technicalities of it, but it's fueled by a lot of money, a lot of people who are in places of power, political power and financial power. So, and I know there's parental pressure, there's a lot of school pressure. TISB has, you're surrounded by really smart people, teachers, college counselors. You will get pressure from them, right? That's another topic. But I would say, for your own mental health and sanity, keep the rankings in mind. Yes, because I cannot reasonably ask you to just forget them, because realistically you can't. If you want to study like CS, right? If you have to choose between Columbia and Berkeley, even if Berkeley is like number 13 and Columbia is number 5, I would choose Berkeley, because Berkeley just has a way stronger CS program, and it's located in Silicon Valley, and it has access to like CS startups, etc. So that kind of thing. TISB is a very math and science and econ heavy school for a variety of reasons, which are all very fair, honestly. I was always inclined towards the humanities and the arts. I took theater HL, English HL, and computer science HL. And literally everyone I met told me that is such a weird combination. I was like, yeah, you're right. So I was scared. I was nervous. I'm like, I'm not going to get into college because I have a weird combination. And by the way, I didn't take a lab science. Computer science was my lab science. I was the only person in my entire grade who did that. So I was really scared, because I'm like, they're going to look at other people who are applying, and they're going to be like, yeah, these guys have done physics, chem, bio, and this guy hasn't. Like, why would we admit him? So regardless, that's like the peer pressure side of things, where I was like, oh, I'm inclined towards humanities, but I also like CS. So I don't know what I want to do. Don't worry too much about it. It'll come to you. Like, do what you like. You have to spend a lot of time doing your major and doing your work, which you can't do if you like. The only reason I succeeded in the IB is because I was stubborn. I said, I'm only going to take the subjects I like. I don't care what colleges say, right? So I took computer science as a lab science. I took theater HL. I took English HL, even though I was like one of the 3 guys in a 30% class. I was like, this is weird. But I would say that this is more applicable to people who are going into 11th, and maybe even people who are going into 10th who are looking at the IB. Please choose subjects that you like, because a variety of things will happen there. And Aditi, I'll let you speak in just a second.
Yeah.
One, you will enjoy doing the work, which is huge. It is huge. If you don't, dude, if you don't like math, don't take math HR. Don't take math HR. I've
I'm
seen
gonna
so
add,
many people.
because even if people are saying take math HL, it will look good. If you don't like it, please don't do it because you're just hurting yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A 7 in a math SL is way better than a 6 in a math HL. I'm telling you that from my experience, right? Um, And the next thing is you will vibe way better with the teachers, which is a huge deal. You're going to be spending so much time with these teachers day in and day out. They'll be writing your recommendation letters. They'll be supervising your extended essays. They'll be grading your papers, your IAs. They'll be teaching you. They'll be forming a part of who you are. If you don't like the subject, you're not going to be able to vibe with them. No matter how, like, I like the every teacher. No teacher is perfect. Everyone has flaws. Everyone has strengths, but if you like a certain teacher, if you like a certain subject, you'll be willing to let go of the flaws. You'll accept the teacher's strengths and you'll be like, okay, I know what I want from this teacher, I know what I want from this subject. So you will be happy in your 2 years of TISB. And finally, the third thing is you will be surrounded by other students and other people who who are like-minded like you, right? Who like that. Like theater HL, there were like 5 people in my 120% graduating class, right, Aditi? And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, and there were like 50, 60 people in math HL. So obviously math HL was way more popular. And theater, even I was like, I'm one of the only few guys. I don't know. Is it like a girly subject? People kind of look at me weird when I'm like, say I'm in theater. But I loved it. Like a lot of people were like, oh yeah, like theater teachers, maybe like it's like weird, it's hard, blah, blah, blah. But I just love the subject. So, and I was surrounded by other people who are passionate about theater, like the teachers and the students alike. And I was written a beautiful, beautiful recommendation letter by my theater teachers. I formed lifelong friends in my, theater class, had so much fun. But yeah, just to conclude my train of thought, your 6 subjects which you take in the IB, 7 if you're super ambitious. Please choose subjects that you like, that you really want to do, right? Some things you have to do, like math, you have to do. If you're like, okay, God, I do not want to do math, you can't ignore that. Just take math studies or whatever. They've changed the math thing. Just take that. Don't take math HL. But yeah, your HLs, which are like, consider it your high school major, choose a combination of subjects that you guys like.
I actually really like that you said high school major. I really like that. No, I just was gonna add that I kind of was on the flip side of things where I think I actually gave into that peer pressure and took subjects that maybe weren't the most ideal for me. And I felt like I really like I was like, oh, like, I can take this on. Like I'm gonna do physics, chemistry, math HL. I actually decided to not take any social science and replaced it with biology, and then took English and French B. And I really did not enjoy IB. I will not lie. I really struggled through the entire thing. And I think by just choosing a better combo of subjects that I liked, I could have had a better experience. Like I really enjoyed computer science, but I don't know, everyone was like, you should do, physics, chem, math. Like that's the combo. And so I just felt like I had to do that. And I dropped computer science, even though it was something I really enjoyed. I would say the only advantage, and it's really not even an advantage, is maybe, it depends. Maybe you will be able to skip out of some classes in the beginning of your freshman year by doing well in like some science higher level. But that is really irrelevant because there's so much to learn even in those introductory classes in college. So it really doesn't matter. Just take the subjects that you like. Absolutely agree. I would say that work in high school and college are very, very different. In high school, and I'm sure it still works the same way at TSB, but I mean, it's mostly test centric in the sense that like tests carry a lot of your weight. And so homework, it doesn't really matter whether you do it or not, like, or like you can put like a minimal effort and just kind of get away with it, but you spend most of your time studying for exams. And I feel like a lot of our assignments are obviously a lot smaller in high school, but when you get to college, there is so much more work, and it's not just like you are taking more, you're taking less classes usually. I don't know how, I'm sure it's the same for Rishi, but like I take like 4 classes a semester. but like the workload in all of those classes are like 20 plus hours. And so what it means is you have to start early, and get a head start on your work and be really organized. And like it took me a few semesters to kind of get in the groove and see what works for me. But I realized that for me, I really just want, like, I need my Saturday to be completely free. That's how I am able to like relax. And so what I do is I really pile on my work during the week, um, and on Sunday, so that I can have that full Saturday off. But yeah, I mean, I think different people just work in different ways, and you need to figure out what works for you. Another thing is to not overload yourself. I know Rishi was like he briefly talked about how he was like, oh, I don't want to do like a double major with a minor. And I think a lot of people go into college being like, oh, I want to do this major and this major, and I've planned out my entire schedule for the next 4 years. And you're gonna hate it. I promise you, you will not enjoy college if you try and take every single class and do every single thing. A lot of people take 5 courses, but a semester, but I chose not to, because I think that there are other things that are equally important as your work. Like you need that time to socialize, to make connections, to interact with the communities that you live in. Yeah, just don't let your work dictate how you live. I think you need to find a balance. It's necessary.
I think the toughest semester of IB is first semester of 12th grade. Aditi and Shaila, feel free to agree or disagree with that, because you've started your EE, you started your IAs, you're prepping for mocks, which are the most important grades for applying to colleges. You're writing your college apps, and you're also trying to ramp up on extracurriculars. So that can feel really, really intense. I mean, I've said this to a couple of friends, primarily like a little bit as a joke, but I truly believe in it now, looking back at it. I think the IB is much more about time management than it is about intelligence, because just the sheer amount of work that's thrown at you, it's a lot of work. I would say, like, I had worked harder in the IB than I did first year of college. That's 100% for me, at least, because there's
Oh,
so
same.
much stuff you have to do. Yeah, like TOK essay, extended essay, IAs for like 6 subjects, like there's a lot of work. So I think piece of advice I would give is pacing yourself, manage blocking out time. So what I would do is I would take a piece of paper. I have it right here. I've been doing this ever since IB. And I would use a pencil to draw out squares, right? And then over here, I would write the date and the day. So made this back in March. So this was 30th March, Monday. So I would do that for like 2 weeks. And then in blue, so if you can see in blue, I would write the assignment that I will do on that day. So I would have like 3-4 things to do in blue. And then in red, I would have what is due on that day. So as you can see, on this day, I had an essay due for a particular class. On this day, I had a homework set due. And what I would do is, so first in red, I will write out all the stuff that's due on particular days. Then I'll work backwards. Okay, so I'll be like, okay, so supposing this homework problem, how many hours do I need to spend on it? And just estimate it. I'm not like a mathematician or whatever. I took math as well. So I would be like, okay, maybe like 6 hours, right? So I'd be like, okay, I'll start on like today is 30th, for example. I'll start on Saturday. It'll take me 6 hours. I'll spend 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. I don't know if you can see. Yeah. So I'll start on Saturday, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. Then it's due on this day. So then I can submit it on this day. So I'm pacing myself. I'm not working super hard throughout the week. Like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Because I also have like 5 other things due. And I'm also not waiting until the last day, which is what I have done that a couple of times and it's been disastrous. So of course, again, as Aditi mentioned, you like find what works for you. I've continued using this in college where, see guys, there's one is doing the work, right? Which takes 60% of my time. Then 40% of the time is thinking about that work. Like, how am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? In what sequence I should do it? And I'm sure you guys can relate. Like thinking about that work. Oh, like I'll just watch one more episode of like Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I've got like so much work, and it just gets stressful. So that not only is there the stress of the work, there's the stress of thinking about how to approach the work. So this took away all that stress, and it freed up my mental capacity to watch those episodes of Netflix without guilt and then focus the 60% of my time on IB work. There's this culture of the more I'm working, the busier I am, the more successful I am, the higher, the more smart I am, which is present not only at TISB, but guys like at any high achieving like institution, college, company. This illusion of, oh yeah, like every day, every hour of my day should be filled with like this much work so that not to show others, but to feel like, okay, I'm being productive, I'm doing work, I'm getting things done. But that just, you end up realizing how inefficient that is. Plan out your days and you will find the time to watch like 1 whole hour of TV every day, 2 hours on like on some days, more hours on the weekends, and still get all your work done. I did that. I took a lot of free time. I spent time with family, watched TV, ate in restaurants on weekdays, blah blah blah, and I was fine. So that's for the IB portion. College, I think Aditi talked a decent amount about college, so I won't go on too much about that. But yeah, as she said, I think one thing I would add is a college is a lot more self designed work. So you spend very few hours during the week in classes. Like out of the like in your 5 day week, you spend maybe 30% of your time in classes, 20% even maybe, and the rest of the time is up to you to finish your own assignments, do the reading on your own, do the problem sets on your own, talk to professors on your own, like prepare for exams on your. You have to do everything by yourself, at least in the US, right? So that becomes hard, where you have to define it. It's like a step up of IB, because in IB, at least when you're in school from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m, you're like, you have periods and you have free lessons and your 5 days are defined for you. College, it's not defined, it's very loose, only the lecture timings are defined. So I would say that gets a bit hard, because even sometimes I was like there's always, you always feel like you want to do work, because there's no like, oh yeah, like I'm spending 9 to 5 in my like college, so I'm going to do work only then. Like you feel like I can be doing work at all times. So it's hard to separate, like, oh, like I'm going to chill after 5 p.m, I'm going to work only before 5 p.m. So that was kind of difficult, because you're spending all your time on campus, so it's just like, oh, when do I do the work? um so yeah, again, my piece of advice would be like scheduling out time. As I loved Aditi's idea of telling yourself, like, for my health, for my social life, for my, for wanting to explore the city, whatever, I want to have Saturday free, like completely free. And then if you impose that restriction on yourself, like you'll be able to, your schedule will fall in place, because you'll work harder on the weekdays, and you'll, instead of spending that 15 minutes before, like between like class and lunch on your phone, like you'll be like, okay, no, I'll actually do some reading. Those small things add up.
I like what you said about like, you spend a lot of time thinking about your work, and I totally, I used to feel like that a lot. um and I think like one thing that's like one recommendation that I have is that like you very explicitly set out time that you are working and that you're not working. That like includes like, I honestly a lot of the time don't think that group study works for me. It's not conducive for my learning, because you start talking about something else, and so you'll sit there for 3 hours and you would have talked to your friends for one of those 3 hours, and you would have been like, wow, I spent like 3 hours studying for this exam, I did this much, I did this much. Then you take your exam, you don't do well, and then you're like, I put in all this time, and then you're like super frustrated and you just feel like you're working all the time. And so I've just made like very clear distinctions that I'm like, okay, now I'm working, and at this time, I'm explicitly not going to think about work at all. And that for me really helps me at least feel like I have a better work-life balance. And the other thing that I would say is probably more applicable to college work, but like, I think it's really important that whenever you get your assignment, you just have a look at it. Just be like, what, like, just so you can like ballpark how much time something is going to take, because you never really know with assignments. Sometimes you can look at something and be like, oh, it's going to take me 2 hours, and then you look at you like the next week the homework comes out and you're like, this is like going to take me a really large portion of my time. So I think it's really important to just have a look at what you're assigned, so that you have a better understanding of how much time it's going to take. I would say that I probably used upperclassmen the most. I think they're the most valuable resource. As much as you can talk to your advisor or your multiple advisors, they have not gone through the same college experience as the upperclassmen. They have actually experienced it, and so they will be able to give you the most insight about what you should do and what classes they think are good to take, whether a certain combinations of classes make sense. So I would take their advice pretty seriously.
And I'm going to add on to that and say that it can also be reversed to people who are in 11th and 12th grade right now. And if they're decided their major, they can talk to people who are already in college, like you guys, right? Absolutely. I think that's super useful. And it's especially useful if you want like this one particular course in this one particular college, and you just know like maybe like one alumni who went there. Reach out to them, right? There's no harm in reaching out to them, and most probably like if you tell them, hey, I'm from the same school as you, they're going to reply to you, and they're going to like love to talk to you about it. So it works both ways. It works in college, it works in high school equally well, I would definitely say.
Yeah, even though I'm majoring in philosophy, I'm still considering going into the film industry, either as writer, director, or producer, in the US. But yeah, as an arts student, or pursuing arts in the US, what I would say is what has been my experience been like. Okay, so one is talking about visa stuff, which doesn't apply to me, but speaking from other international students I know who are pursuing arts. So as you guys apply to college, you will learn of this very nasty, if you're Indian, if you're not US citizens and you're applying to the US, you learn of this very nasty thing called uh, CPT and OPT, and like just the entire fiascos regarding F1 visas, which is what the student visa for the US is. What happens in that scenario is after you graduate college, and I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on this, but just to outline it, if you graduate with a STEM degree, you're allowed 2 years to stay in the US before to find a job, and you have 2 years to find a job which gives you a work visa so that you can stay in the longer. And if you don't find a job within 2 years, and a visa extension within 2 years, you have to leave the country. And STEM for some colleges, by the way, includes economics. If you're non-STEM, I think you only get 1 year, right, to find a employment which extends your visa, and otherwise you have to come back. Now the double whammy is that STEM companies, since they are the most profitable companies and highest revenue, and they're doing they have the most resources, they are much more they are the most likely to extend you work visas to stay in the US. Non-STEM companies, it's like a very low chance, like unless you're at like Netflix, which is still kind of a STEM company because it's based in Silicon Valley. But yeah, like film companies and like publishing companies and anything which is not STEM, essentially you don't expect a work visa from them. So I think that makes it tricky for some students who want to do arts to if they're not US citizens, to pursue arts in the US, because you can do your entire program of study, no problem, like do internships, like your entire college experience is the same. But like if you want to stay in the US after college pursuing arts, it becomes really difficult. But that being said, if you're open to coming back to India or wherever you're from, then it works out fine because you still got that like education you wanted and you're able to use those skills like where you are. But yeah, if you want to stay in the US, I would say that becomes a bit of a problem. So a lot of people I've found, what they do is, even if they want to go into the arts, they will they will do an econ major, or they'll do a CS major or engineering major, and they'll keep like, if they want to do film, for example, they'll keep making films outside of the classroom. They'll intern at film companies, they'll join film clubs, so that way they can stay in the US like for 2 years, and like they'll probably get hired at a company which gives them a visa extension, and they're still in like they have some buffer period to think about, okay, if I'm just doing CS to stay in the US, I have some time to think about, okay, if I do want to do film or if I do want to do some arts, how can I do it in the future? So then you could apply for like, what one strategy you could do is work in the US like how much ever time you need to before you become a naturalized citizen, go to graduate school, get a master's degree in whatever art you want, and then go into that field. My experience as an international student in the arts has been, look, if you're Indian, if you're Asian, especially if you're Indian, there are very few people in the arts in the US, whether they're from China, India, whether they're originally from Asia, or if they're like Asian Americans. Most of them are either doing engineering, CS, economics, or medicine. So it becomes kind of like you want to, so I think as an Indian, just by virtue of being Indian. Also, another thing to add, when you go outside India, you just become much more aware of how Indian you are, of your Indian identity. So so I feel like one phenomenon that happens is, because you connect, you just inherently connect better with Indian people. You want to be surrounded by like-minded people. You tend to gravitate towards those Indian majors, like which are STEM majors and medicine. So that ends up happening because there's so many successful people, and a lot of people pursuing CS, like especially CS is the hottest stuff right now. Like even if you look at it upwards, right? Satya Nadella, Indian. Sundar Pichai, Indian. Mastercard CEO, I think he's an Indian person too. So yeah, I think that just becomes easier because, like, no matter how hard the path there is, like you'll be supported along the way, and there's a lot of representation for Indians in tech in the US, like outside India. You're valued there. But in the arts, it's like, at least in film, I can speak of film. Like I interned at a film studio last semester, and it was just like all white people. There was one black person there, but everyone else was white. And I was like, I felt, let's not go into how I felt because that can get political. But it just like it was interesting to see that stark like lack of representation in the arts, right? And so honestly, when I was in high school, I didn't care that much. I was like, I don't care about representation. I want to make movies and win an Oscar, right? Which is fine. Like that's gonna happen. Like you don't have that much perspective. But just one thing to keep in mind is, in the arts, in the US at least, there's you might feel very discouraged because there are not as many Indian people and Asian people in the arts. But yeah, so that's very valid. I'm not going to say, yeah, like don't keep doing arts even if there are no Indian people. Like do, like, get the hustle, get the grind. It's not about that. You want to feel supported. You want to feel like you have a community. Like being around people who you connect with, being around other Indians, definitely, like, it's good for your mental health, man. Like if you're Indian. But anyway, so I would say that's something to consider and think about.
I have taken a very, I mean, I don't know if it's an interesting approach, but to college, but I kind of just take whatever I want. I take whatever I want. I'm not super worried about, I've talked to my parents about this, but like I'm not super worried about trying to finish on time. I've not planned out what I'm going to do for the next 2 years. And that's very much on purpose, because I think, like, you take one class and then you realize that you really enjoy it, and then you start going down a different route. And I would say, regardless of any US college, you will have some level of flexibility. I would say that because, I mean, Carnegie Mellon is definitely not a liberal arts school. So it definitely doesn't have the same, probably not the same flexibility that, like, let's say Rishi has. But even then, there is so much scope, like, to be, you can take so many courses outside of your major and still finish on time. And I think it's important to do that, because I don't know, you will find things that you didn't think you would enjoy, and maybe that might change the path of your major.
So I think most like colleges in the US, so they'll have a core requirement, like they're called general education requirements, or just like GEs for short. We call it the core curriculum. Every college has a different name for it, but so those are courses all undergraduates have to do, so that like an English class, a science class, a writing class, like it's just a bunch of courses. Columbia is infamous for having a very dense core curriculum. We have, like, usually you're like in most other colleges I've heard of, you're done with the core curriculum in the first year. We have to spend core curriculum spans a part of your schedule for the first 3 years, so it's a pretty dense, which, if you're into the kind of stuff they teach in the core curriculum, it's absolutely fantastic and I love it. But yeah, speaking of the flexibility to take other classes, yeah, so you have, I think I can divide it into three sorts of classes. One is the core or GE classes, your major required classes, and then electives. Electives are courses which you just want to take for fun. So whether that's winemaking, pottery, drawing, animation, whatever. I took a lot of, like, first 2 years, all I did was explore really. I took a psychology course for fun. As I was exploring majors, I took like an econ course. I took a calculus course. I took a film course, obviously, philosophy course, of course. Um, and I plan to take courses in creative writing and English. I was thinking of a physics course at a certain point. Let's see if that happens. But yeah, I think as long as like you sort of plan out your time, sort of like not exactly what you're doing, but you have 8 semesters. Each semester you'll be doing 4 to 5 classes. You can be like, okay, I'll finish my core classes in like the first blah blah blah, like X amount of time. Then I'll finish my major in Y amount of time. Then I have like overall, if you're taking supposing 4 times 8, 32 classes, right? So you'd be yeah. So you can supposing 10 classes of core curriculum, 10 classes are for your major. Then you're done with 20 classes, and then you have 12 classes left. I'm not saying what would happen mathematically, but it could be that. Then you can just take whatever you want. There's no like restrict. You don't have to apply for any class. Like okay, no. You do have to apply for some classes, but and there are some classes which are restricted to some majors. So you can't take a screenwriting class unless you're a film major, for example, and you can't take like you couldn't take advanced computer graphics if you're not a CS major, right? But I would say for the majority of intro courses in any department, you're free to explore. And their Columbia's philosophy is they want to keep all these courses open to everyone because they love people exploring and like changing their majors and coming in to college with something and then changing to something else. That's what they like pride themselves on that.
And I want to plug the quarter system here, because what the quarter system does mathematically, it just allows you to take more courses because you have 3 quarters in a year instead of 2 semesters in a year. So you have more options to take more classes, just like a bit mathematically. But that's just something, yeah, if you're interested in the quarter system, that's something to know.